Hello and welcome to the February edition of our What's New and Next webinar, where we cover the latest updates that can drive your business forward. Today, our updates will provide an overview of the latest innovations across Citrix DaaS, Secure Access, Unicon, and NetScaler. We'll spotlight the biggest highlights in the new CVAD 2511 CR release, along with updates across Citrix DaaS. We'll also share a few key takeaways from Microsoft Ignite. Things like the announcement of Adrian, a new AI assistant, Teams optimization coming to Mac OS, and support for Entra SSO. Lots of good stuff there. Then we'll dive into Citrix Secure Access with Chrome Enterprise. If you're working with mixed devices or a distributed workforce, this is a great one. You'll see how you can give users flexible access to the apps they need without sacrificing security. And we'll walk through how Citrix Unicon OS helps simplify access, enforce consistent policies, and reduce day-to-day admin work. Lastly, we'll look at the new AI capabilities inside NetScaler, specifically how you can centrally control and optimize AI traffic while managing costs as AI usage grows across your organization. Before we dive into the demos, I do want to highlight one very important change around licensing. We're moving key products over to our License Activation Service, or LAS. To stay ahead of this shift, you'll want to upgrade to LAS-enabled versions, use in-console activation instead of file-based licenses, and register your Citrix license server or NetScaler console with Citrix Cloud. Why? Because it makes your life a lot easier. You get no license files to manage anymore, entitlements that update automatically, and a more resilient setup with fewer failure points. The key date to know is April 15th. If you haven't migrated by then, your licensing server will experience an outage. So definitely make sure that this is on your team's priority radar. If you have any questions at any point, just hit the Q&A button in your webinar toolbar. Our experts are standing by and will answer as we go. All right, let's get into it. Mark, take it away with the latest in CVAD and DaaS.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining. In the next 10 minutes, we'll cover what's new for Citrix administrators across CVAD and Citrix DaaS, and how these updates align to Microsoft platform direction. Let's start with the release updates that impact the day-to-day operations first. CVAD 2511 CR is centered on operator outcomes, user experience, diagnostic, hybrid options, and cost control. First, with Citrix HDX technology, the updates focus on encoding efficiency and LAN image quality improvements. Practically, this is intended to help deliver strong visuals while reducing pressure on CPU and bandwidth under real usage. And the new Super Resolution option is a client-side enhancement that can make text and UI elements look sharper, especially on high DPI displays, by intelligently improving how the image is presented on the endpoint. Second, seamless app enhancements like transparent windows and dynamic previews are all about making apps feel more native and reducing visual friction for users. Third, always-on tracing is a meaningful operational shift because diagnostics are captured continuously. So when you're troubleshooting, you have historical context without needing to reproduce the issue or manually capture traces. Fourth, Citrix Director in-console HDX screen sharing is aimed at faster triage because admins can see what the user is experiencing without having to switch tools. And finally, expanded provisioning options with Azure Local and AWS Workspace's Core support hybrid planning, while stronger cost controls help make utilization and autoscale decisions more measurable. Final note for LTSR customers, if your priority is longer-term support and predictable operational baseline, you should anchor your rollout on CVAD 2507 LTSR CU1. Use the 2511 CR selectively when you need a specific new capability. With that foundation, the next slide is a short list of what we announced at Microsoft Ignite and how it maps to the same admin priorities: experience, security, and operations. At Microsoft Ignite 2025, we focused on continuous improvement across experience, security, and operational efficiency. The three Citrix announcements we'll cover are Citrix Adrian for AI-assisted operations, Microsoft Entra ID support, inside Citrix hosted virtual apps and desktops, and Microsoft Teams optimization on Mac OS with the Citrix Workspace app for Mac. You'll see a consistent theme. We're building on Microsoft platform capabilities and making them operable at enterprise scale. We'll start with operations first, because it's the fastest lever for reducing time to resolution and support load. Citrix Adrian is an AI-assisted operations capability we're bringing to Citrix Cloud. It's available today as a preview, and we're targeting general availability in Q2 of 2026. The simplest way to think about it is this. Instead of every admin reinventing the same troubleshooting steps, Citrix Adrian helps surface guidance and recommended actions based on what your environment is actually showing. It builds on institutional knowledge in documentation and soon to be released anonymized support case data. This is especially useful for repeatable Tier 1 work, such as how do I questions and common issues that generate a lot of tickets and context switching. Getting started is seamless. You can hand this to your help desk team and resolve high-volume scenarios quickly. Then expand coverage as you see value. The outcome we're driving is fewer repetitive escalations and faster time to resolution, so your senior engineers can stay focused on harder problems. Next, let's move from operations to identity, because sign-in consistency is one of the biggest friction points in VDI. If you run VDI at scale, you've probably seen the same pattern. A user signs in on their device, launches the virtual desktop, and then gets asked to authenticate again. Once they're inside the session, it's not just annoying, it creates a real operational drag because teams end up maintaining identity controls in more than one place. And that's where inconsistencies and support tickets start to pile up. With Microsoft Entra ID SSO now supported inside Citrix virtual apps and desktops, the goal is to make that sign-in experience feel continuous in the Citrix session. More importantly for security teams, it helps keep policies centralized. Microsoft Entra Conditional Access can extend into the session, and you can apply multi-factor authentication and passwordless sign-on approaches consistently without duplicating policies for the virtual environment. The practice outcome is fewer sign-in failures and fewer MFA loops, which translates into fewer tickets and a smoother user experience. Next, once identity is clean, the workload users judge the environment by is collaboration, especially Microsoft Teams. Let's take a look at Teams optimization on Mac OS. For a lot of users, Microsoft Teams is the moment of truth. If meetings are choppy or screen sharing is painful, everything else you do gets judged through that lens. And with more Mac endpoints in the mix, it's important to know what good looks like on Mac OS. The Citrix Workspace app for Mac supports Microsoft Teams optimization, including optimized screen sharing. The simple way to confirm you're on the optimized path is to check for the Citrix HDX optimized indicator in the Teams client, and then sanity check the things your users actually care about: audio and video stability, background effects, whether media acceleration is working as expected. Microsoft's Slim Core-based optimization keeps evolving, and that's a good thing because it continues to improve the team's experience in virtualized environments. The operational takeaway is to standardize on known good versions and keep a small Mac validation ring so you can adopt updates confidently and keep production user experience consistent. Now that we've covered the 3 Citrix announcements, let's zoom out to the platform shift customers are asking about: Azure Virtual Desktop for hybrid environments, what it changes, and what you still own operationally. Microsoft's hybrid move with Azure Virtual Desktop is basically about placement. With Azure Virtual Desktop for hybrid environments, you can run session hosts on-premise using Azure Arc-enabled servers, while still using the Azure Virtual Desktop control plane in Azure for brokering and management. For customers, that's useful when location matters, like sites with tight latency requirements, data residency considerations, or specific regulatory constraints. What I'd like to make explicit is what this does not remove. You still own the host lifecycle on-prem: capacity planning, patching, day-to-day operations. You still have to line up identity prerequisites and licensing. And now you have more paths in the troubleshooting chain because you're operating across more sites and network segments. This is where Citrix products continue to add value. We're not trying to replace the Microsoft platform. Microsoft provides the platform, and Citrix extends it for the enterprise. That means maintaining consistent user experience with Citrix HDX technology across real networks and endpoint diversity, applying policy-based controls so access and session protection stay consistent, and giving admins the operational visibility to troubleshoot faster across hybrid environments. And with that, we'll close with the practical next steps you can take right after this session. First, if you're moving to CVAD 2511 CR, prioritize always-on tracing and make sure your Citrix Director workflows are in good shape. That's the quickest path to faster troubleshooting, because you'll have the context you need when an issue shows up. Second, if you have users on high DPI monitors or graphic-intensive workloads, give Super Resolution a try. It's a straightforward way to improve perceived visual clarity and make the experience feel sharper without changing the app. Third, if sign-in friction is a pain point in your VDI environment, start rolling out Microsoft Entra ID SSO to a small user group, then expand as you confirm the experience. Keep it measurable. Track your login prompts, sign-in failures, and ticket volume so you can show the improvement. Fourth, for collaboration quality, standardize Microsoft Teams optimization on Mac OS and keep a small test ring available so you can take updates confidently and keep user experience consistent. And as always, before you scale any of these changes broadly, check the current Citrix documentation for prerequisites and supported configurations. And now I'll hand it over to Daniel Feller to talk about Citrix Secure Access.
Thanks, Mark. So I want to start with just understanding that over the last 3 years, the way users have accessed apps has continued to change. We're seeing more remote users. We're seeing more SaaS applications. We're seeing a greater expectation when it comes to zero trust. That's why Citrix Secure Access with Chrome Enterprise continues to evolve along with these new user requirements. Today, we're going to focus on what's new, what's improved, and how these updates impact you and your users. Before we get into the details of what's new and what's improved, I want to take a moment so we're all on the same page and understand the importance of having an enterprise browser strategy. Because if you think about when you start your day, what's the first application you launch? Most likely it's your browser. Where are most of your applications executing from? Most likely it's your browser. This is because, like we said, there's more SaaS applications, more websites, more web services that we're accessing, and they're all coming from the browser. The browser is becoming the new endpoint that we have to protect. Along with this is the attack surface has expanded as well. Not only are we looking at users on personal devices who are also working remotely, organizations are relying more on third-party contractors. And these users are also on unmanaged devices. Our users are no longer contained in our offices. They are spread out everywhere. So the attack surface is becoming much more difficult to secure. Now, in doing this, many organizations have gone down the pathway of leveraging tools like Security Service Edge, SSE. Now, these do an adequate job of inspecting the network traffic and trying to identify confidential information, malicious activities that would be happening. But it's missing the last mile. It's missing that point of where work is happening, where users are interacting with the data, and that's the browser. And that's why we really want to focus on this whole concept of the enterprise browser strategy. Now, to do this, I want to focus on BYOD, personal devices. And there are essentially a few steps in order to improve the security of your personal devices. And that is, we're going to isolate work and personal. We're going to harden the browser configuration for this work environment. We also want to enforce agentless zero trust access. So if you think about it, you're on a personal device, chances are you're not going to be too interested in installing your organization's security agents on your own device. So we need these security policies to be agentless, and any zero trust network access needs to be agentless. And then finally, when we run into sensitive data, we need to have browser native DLP that can provide security policies automatically to help protect the data from being accidentally exfiltrated to these personal devices. So that sets the stage of what we're going to focus on when it comes to this demo. We want to look at how this solution can help us solve this BYOD challenge. And the first step of this is looking at the first impression. That's just getting in. So most users are going to be accessing these applications, and they're going to start from their personal browser, especially when we're onboarding new employees. What's going to happen is we're going to prevent them from getting access. So Citrix Secure Access is identifying that you are in a personal browser profile, and we're going to prevent access directly to these applications. But At the same time, we're going to provide real-time coaching that guides you on how to get access to these applications from your device. And that is to launch in the Chrome work profile. So in this case, the user is going to go ahead and add a new Chrome profile because it's a new endpoint device. There's nothing to install. Don't have to contact IT. There's no security agents to configure, no VPNs, none of this type of stuff you have to do. All you have to do is sign in with your credentials. And what this is going to do is it's going to provide that secured browser container that's pre-configured for this organization. So our environment is now configured. Took a couple seconds to log in. I now have a secured environment. A few things you'll notice here is first, the theme applied to this is green. That's just so we can identify, as this demo that this is my secured environment, whereas the previous one was that light blue. That's my personal environment. We've also configured bookmarks, corporate bookmarks that the employee might need. Security policies have been applied to this browser to protect it. And we've also incorporated Citrix provided extensions automatically installed that's going to provide these zero trust policies for this secured environment that we're going to be leveraging. Since the secured environment is now configured, we can go ahead and access the environment just like we would normally. User experience doesn't change. Now, what you see here is we're running a device posture scan to understand if this device is compliant. But because this is a personal device, we didn't install any agents. So we're not going to be able to get the level of detail that we need to provide full compliant device access. So we're going to be running a non-compliant device access. You still get access to the apps, but your level of access has been reduced to align with the current device, the current user, the current location, and so on. So we're not blocking the user completely outright. We're aligning security policies with the current context of the solution. We'll go ahead and log in to our Citrix workspace environment. My passwords have been synchronized down because they were already pre-configured, and the user now has access to all these different applications. I'm going to go ahead and access the Internet portal, and this is a private web application running in our private data center. Typically, this would be using a ZTNA agent that you had to install or a VPN client you had to install on the endpoint device, but nothing like that happened. What did happen, though, is one of those extensions is providing us that agentless ZTNA access to get access to this private application. So very quickly, we went from no access to, our non-compliant, restricted access without installing anything. All we had to do was log into the browser. Now, again, the Zero Trust Network Access, based on the name, is just providing network level access. But we want to take this a step further and focus on data security by implementing invisible guardrails with the user's access. So first, we're going to do something very simple that users would typically do, even on BYOD, is download a file. Now, the file is getting scanned and looking for confidential information. If it's contained within the file, we're going to prevent this file from being downloaded to a personal device. It's an unmanaged device. We do not want that data to leave our secured environment, so we're blocking the download. But we're providing real-time coaching right now when the user's denied access to tell them, hey, if you need access to this, this is how you get access to this file. Move to a company-owned device. And then it's compliant. You'll be able to get full access. So that real-time coaching is important to overcome those situations where security policies stop users from getting work done. So this is just one aspect. The second aspect of DLP comes down to like visual DLP. Because we don't know what type of agents and what type of malware might be on the endpoint device, we need to be looking at where data can be leaking out of this browser. And one of them is just on the display. So here we're doing visual DLP capabilities that's blocking any type of sensitive information that might be appearing on screen. Two different types are displayed here, redaction and masking. Redaction is the data is gone from the screen. You can't see it at all. Masking is you can temporarily remove the mask for one of these items. So you saw there, the social security number appeared for a second because I clicked on it. Then after a second, it's masked again. So this is how we handle visual DLP. just another way that we're trying to prevent data from being exfiltrated to a personal device. Now, again, when we talk about personal devices, one of the risks that we have is around shadow IT, the different types of applications users might have installed on their endpoint device. And one of them is, of course, going to be extensions within the browser. We start with a zero trust mentality where you deny access to all these different types of extensions because there are thousands and probably millions of extensions. And a lot of these can leak data onto the endpoint or to third parties. So we start by blocking everything. But as an administrator, you can go through and say, you know what, maybe users are using LastPass. You can go through and assess the risk for allowing users to use this extension with this secured environment. If the risk is low enough, we can allow users to manually install this within their environment. But everything else, we maintain a block on, prevent users from installing this. So it's a way to help keep this browser environment in a controlled and secured state. Now, again, when we think of shadow IT, we typically think of web applications, SaaS applications, and even shadow AI, using things like ChatGPT. Now, AI tools are popping up, weekly. And it's hard to stay on top of if these are legitimate, if they're safe for our users. So again, with a zero trust mentality is never trust, always verify. So we're not trusting any of these AI tools as they appear until we do the due diligence to identify that they're safe for the organization. In this case, we're blocking ChatGPT, but we're providing real-time coaching for the user. If they need to use Gen AI, they can use the corporate approved one, and that's Gemini, and they can automatically, very quickly get into the approved tool. Now, because this is a personal device, we got to understand that users are going to be able to bypass these security, blocks against shadow AI and shadow IT by using their personal browser. And this is what we're doing here. User's going to copy some data from their work environment and try to use this within their personal browser. But this is another way that data can leak. And we're stopping this by putting new DLP controls in there about copy paste functionality coming out of your secured environment. But we don't want to stifle innovation. We don't want to prevent users from getting work done. So if you're in your personal profile, again, you can use anything you want because we're not controlling that. This is your own device. This is your own browser. These are your own tools. What we need to do is, what you saw is we're protecting the data from leaving the work environment, but we're allowing users to innovate within their personal environment. So in this example, the user can leverage these online tools, generate content, generate files, and bring this back into our work environment. But while this information gets brought back in, especially when we're talking about uploads of files, we're using advanced threat protection to identify that the information we're bringing in is safe. It doesn't contain malware. It doesn't contain any malicious code. It's safe for our environment. So I want to now jump over on the observability side. And that's usually a challenge when it comes to personal devices because there are no agents on the endpoint device. So how do you identify what's happening? And so what you can see here is I have my session or my user, they've got a couple sessions running, no virtual apps right now, but they have a web, SaaS, or client server apps running. So we'll go ahead and look at one of these sessions and the resources they've accessed. So they got one SaaS app and two web application resources. It's sometimes difficult to understand how users are accessing these applications. So one of the really neat things with observability is the application topology. It sets out this graphical layout of how users are getting access to these resources. So in this case, we have a web browser that is having it's being evaluated. The policies are being evaluated from the secure private access. We see there's one configured policy and it's made 19 apps available. But the overall evaluation, we're allowing access to those 19 apps. From there, the user is trying to access a web and SaaS application, in this case, Google Docs that we just showed. This is a direct connection from the browser to the SaaS application. Again, the policy resultant here is we're allowing the app launch. Further down, you can get more details. You can see all the policies that are applied. You can see the resultant set of policy to see if we're allowing or denying access, the routing, and all the different types of warnings or alerts that might be appearing for this particular session. Now, to compare it from a SaaS app to a private application, what you can see is the topologies change slightly. Because it's a private app, it's running in the data center and you can't access it directly. You have to go through one of these connector appliances that's tied to the ZTNA solution. And again, this is very visible when you look at the topology. You can see the browser hitting the private access service. We're allowing the access. It's going through the connector appliance to our web application. And again, similar details below about the resultant set of policies and everything that's being applied to protect this session. Now, we've seen how easy it was to onboard users. We've seen how the invisible guardrails can help protect our data when we're in this secured environment, even when we're in the personal environment, helping to prevent data exfiltration. But eventually work does end, especially when we're looking at contractors and BYO devices. So on the back end, I basically just disabled access for this user account, assuming the contractor or this device is no longer authorized. They can no longer get access to these applications via bookmarks or even via Workspace. So eventually Workspace will refresh on its own and these applications will all disappear. And we can go ahead too and just, disable the user account and they won't even get to log into Workspace. But this is showing how we can easily remove users from access to these resources without having to touch the device. Now, what we saw here was three different things. We saw first how easy it was to onboard. And there was nothing to install. You didn't have to call IT. All you had to do is log into your browser. We saw the invisible guardrails that's helping protect the data, so it doesn't get exfiltrated accidentally or even maliciously from our secured environment to our endpoint device. And then finally, we saw the no-touch offboarding. We were very easily and quickly able to shut down access when the user is no longer employed, the device becomes risky. But again, we didn't have to rely on agents. We didn't have to rely on device management tools on the device to shut down access. This was all leveraging Citrix Secure Access with Chrome Enterprise, a enterprise browser that we're leveraging to help you improve the security posture of your personal devices. So thanks for attending. And now I'm going to pass it over to Eric, who's going to give us an update on Unicon.
Thank you and welcome to this update on Citrix Unicon. My name is Eric Bigog, and today I'll walk you through key concepts and recent updates around authentication in the Unicon operating system. Authentication has become a core concept and the very first touchpoint in most of our interactions with devices we use for our daily work. And for many of us, it starts even before the workday begins. When we glance at our phone in the morning, an authentication process is already taking place, often seamlessly and almost unnoticed. This is a strong contrast to what users typically experience on desktop devices at work. Here, authentication often comes with too many prompts, breaking focus, making security feel like a trade-off against user experience. Customers constantly confirm this challenge. Multiple logins per session, single sign-on that works sometimes, and a high level of complexity across endpoints, VDI, and browser-based identity setups. This complexity impacts both IT and business. Productivity suffers, support and operational overhead increase, and particularly on shared devices, it can lead to inconsistent security enforcement or increase exposure to threats. So the key question is, how do we address these challenges? With Citrix Unicon OS, on the endpoint, we enable a frictionless end-to-end experience. With a streamlined identity flow, from the moment a user signs in, all the way to applications and the browser, all without repeated authentication. We start with the identity at the endpoint. Users authenticate directly into Citrix Unicon OS using a configured authentication provider. Multiple factor authentication and conditional access are also enforced right here, at the very first touchpoint. The same identity is then reused by the Citrix Workspace app on Unicon OS. Users gain seamless single sign-on access to Citrix and don't need to sign in again. And this is where the fewer logins directly translate into fewer help desk tickets. And single sign-on doesn't stop here at the VDI either. The identity is extended into the browser through managed Chrome profiles, allowing sessions tokens and credentials to be reused. Finally, this experience can even persist across devices through VDI session roaming, and this can be even further enhanced through tap-and-go card authentication. The result is a continuous identity flow, not a series of disconnected sign-ins. So all starts with authentication on the endpoint. where we support several identity providers and authentication protocols. This also includes specialized integrations, such as in Privada, which we'll look at in more detail shortly. And while we build on standard protocols, we also enforce secure access through multiple factor authentication. This forms the cornerstone of strong security concepts and closes gaps through centralized enforcement. The authenticated identity is secured at the endpoint and preserved downstream for reuse. Let's look at a quick example on the next slide. On the right, you see the central login manager of the Unicon OS. Regardless of which identity provider or protocol is used, this is the common authentication experience for the end user. The login interface is fully customizable, allowing customers to align it with branding, design requirements as they want. More importantly, standardizing on protocols such as OpenID Connect or SAML enables easy integration with a wide range of identity providers. While Unicon OS directly supports providers like Okta, Entra ID, and Active Directory, these standard-based approaches also allow integration with additional platforms, such as Keycloak, helping customers further standardize their authentication experience. After an identity is established at the endpoint, the next step is reusing the identity seamlessly. Citrix Workspace app therefore reuses the identity established during the endpoint sign-in and let users access Citrix Cloud or Storefront without additional login prompts. This all happens securely when no credentials are stored locally and existing MFA or conditional access policies remain in effect. Fewer logins here mean a smoother experience, less support issues, and a consistent security enforcement. The next step in the identity flow is extending single sign-on into the browser. On Citrix Unicon OS, managed Chrome profiles carry the user's identity directly into the browser environment. That means identity doesn't stop at the VDI or native applications. It continues into web-based workflows. Session tokens and credentials are reused across web applications, allowing a user to access SaaS services and internal web apps without repeated authentication prompts. From a user perspective, this makes browser-based applications feel just seamless as native apps. And from the IT perspective, it significantly reduces password workarounds or login fatigue. In short, SSO is no longer limited to the desktop or VDI session. With Unicon OS, it naturally extends to the browser, completing the end-to-end identity experience. And as another extension to identity flows, I want to focus on shared workstations and smart card-based authentication, scenarios that are especially common in regulated and high-paced environments. With Citrix Unicon OS, we support infrarouter tap-and-go and fast user switching, allowing users to move between endpoints without repeatedly entering credentials. Authentication becomes an even quicker, intentional action, which is especially useful in healthcare environments where there is no margin for slow or cumbersome logins. The Unicon OS always provides native smart card support as well, including SafeNet, OpenSC, or CAC cards. These integrations are also working seamlessly with the identity providers and with Citrix applications, so there's no custom workflow required. The result is a secure and compliant access on shared stations with an even faster transition. Let's have a glimpse on how that works in a healthcare environment.
Welcome to another Citrix Demo series video. In this demo, you will see how different hospital staff members use Imprivata fast user switching to instantly access patient records, all running on Unicon Elux OS and Citrix. Meet our first user, Nurse Melissa. She enters the patient's room and begins her routine. With a quick tap of her red card, she is instantly logged into the EMR system, in her own user context, ready to work. With our Unicon operating system, the application can run seamlessly within the Elux desktop or as a full-screen Citrix session, giving IT admins full flexibility in how clinical workflows are delivered. Melissa now has secure, instant access to the patient data she needs to continue her work. No waiting, no wasted time. Next, we will switch user context. When Dr. Javier walks into the room, he simply taps his blue card to the reader. This triggers a fast user switch. Melissa is securely logged out, and Javier's login begins. To add another layer of security, he is prompted for his PIN before gaining access. Dr. Javier is now securely logged in, instantly accessing the same patient record, but with additional clinical details available according to his higher permission level. This fast, secure, and seamless process keeps clinical teams productive and patient data protected. Talk to your Citrix representative to learn more.
As we have just seen a demo on Imprivata login, let me also give you a short update on what is new in the latest Unicon OS version. One important enhancement is self-service card enrollment. End users can now enroll their Tap and Go cards and associated pins directly on the device, reducing administrative effort and making onboarding faster and more flexible. We've also significantly improved session roaming. Switching from one device to another becomes seamless, allowing users to pick up their session quickly and continue working without disruption, especially valuable in shared and fast-paced environments. And finally, we've expanded on reader support. Popular MyFair-based readers are now natively supported on Unicon OS, simplifying hardware standardization and rollout. Taken together, these updates further strengthen the Imprivata experience on Unicon OS, making Tap and Go workflows easier to deploy, smoother to use, and better aligned with real-world operational needs. And lastly, I'd like to give you a brief look on what's coming next. On the authentication side, and especially in the context of Imprivata, we're continuing to expand the user experience and security capabilities. This includes support for fingerprint authentication, secure walkaway scenarios, and further enhancements to VDI policies. In parallel, we are also focusing on migration support. Many customers are currently transitioning from existing ThinOS environments, and we are working to make migrations from HP and Dell as smooth and predictable as possible. Together, these next steps reinforce our direction, improving secure, user-friendly authentication while lowering the operational barrier for customers moving to Citrix Unicon OS. So to wrap things up, let's briefly look at the overall business impact of what we've discussed today. By enabling a continuous identity flow from the endpoint to applications, browser, and shared workstations, users do experience fewer login prompts. That directly translates into higher productivity and less frustration during the workday. For IT, this approach enables centralized policy enforcement and more predictable compliance across all devices. And for the whole organization, it reduces the total cost for simpler operations, fewer support issues, and lower overall complexity. If you're not on Unicon OS yet, getting started is straightforward. Our migration tools support migrations from Windows and iTril environments today, with additional platform support coming soon. The links on the slide provide a good starting point. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and interest and head back to Brian to talk about NetScaler.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Brian Hune, a Senior Product Marketing Manager for Citrix NetScaler. I'm sure we all are very aware of the fact that AI is moving fast, and many organizations are eager to take advantage of it. But making AI projects successful at scale is a difficult balance to strike. It requires creating real value from the project while also managing the right guardrails and controls, as well as managing efficiency and other LLM-related costs. That's why today I'll be focusing on how NetScaler helps organizations strike that balance by providing the governance, cost controls, and visibility needed to scale AI profitably and safely across the enterprise. Before we jump into NetScaler, it's worth stepping back and looking at the broader challenge the industry is facing with AI adoption. Gartner projects that 35% of AI projects will be abandoned by 2029. Now, that number is actually down from roughly 60% of projects being abandoned in 2024, which shows the industry is learning, but it also makes clear that a meaningful percentage of AI initiatives are still failing to deliver long-term value. And these projects aren't being abandoned because AI, quote, doesn't work. Gartner points to issues like weak governance and risk controls, operational inefficiencies, and unpredictable ROI, to name a few. What this tells us is that a critical factor in the success of AI projects is creating the right environment for them to thrive. That means putting proper guardrails in place, managing efficiency and cost as usage scales, and having visibility into how AI is actually performing. And that's exactly why NetScaler is focusing on solving this problem. This is where NetScaler AI Gateway comes into the picture. NetScaler AI Gateway provides a centralized control point for how all your AI tools and projects are accessed and used across the enterprise. At a capability level, AI Gateway applies familiar NetScaler strengths to AI workloads. It governs AI traffic across models and environments, optimizes routing and performance, and enforces policy and security controls while providing visibility into usage and cost. This includes things like intelligent routing across models, usage-based controls tied to tokens, and policy enforcement that applies consistently across teams and applications. From a business perspective, this translates into 4 core outcomes. First, streamlined operations by simplifying how AI is integrated and managed through a single control layer rather than a collection of one-off solutions. Second, enhanced efficiency by optimizing performance through intelligent routing, load balancing, and scalable AI interactions. Third, security and governance by enforcing consistent access controls, policies, and compliance guardrails as AI becomes embedded in critical workflows. And finally, cost management by tracking AI usage, controlling token consumption, and preventing runaway spend as adoption grows. Now, ultimately, AI Gateway turns AI into a managed enterprise service rather than an unmanaged set of integrations. That's what allows organizations to scale AI safely, efficiently, and profitably. This functionality is available in NetScaler's 14.1.66.x software release. So before I move on though, I want to talk through a few real-world use cases to help bring AI Gateway to life for you. These examples show how the capabilities we've discussed can translate directly into business value. The first use case is for token-based traffic management, which focuses on one of the most practical challenges organizations face as they scale AI: cost control and fair usage. Now, with LLMs, cost and performance are directly tied to token consumption. The more tokens processed, the more compute is used, and higher the cost. Without guardrails, a small number of users or applications can unintentionally consume a disproportionate share of tokens, driving up costs and degrading experience for everyone else. In this example, let's say we have 2 users who we'll call Mr. Greedy and Mr. Polite, and both use AI in very different ways. Mr. Greedy's work naturally consumes a large number of tokens, while Mr. Polite's use cases are lighter but just as important. Without controls in place, Mr. Greedy could easily monopolize available tokens and degrade the experience for others. NetScaler AI Gateway enforces user-level rate limits based on token consumption, ensuring fair access across teams. And by sending detailed usage data to Splunk or your observability platform of choice, organizations gain the visibility needed to make informed, data-driven adjustments over time, rather than relying on anecdotal feedback. From a business perspective, this delivers 3 key benefits: controlled AI spend, consistent performance for all users, and the operational confidence to expand AI usage across the business without disruption. It's an easy-to-use control that has a measurable impact on both efficiency and budget discipline. Now, the second use case focuses on performance and user experience. Not all LLM requests behave the same, and response times can vary based on model load, region, and underlying infrastructure. NetScaler AI Gateway can make real-time routing decisions based on token latency, directing requests to the model or instance that is responding fastest at the moment. The business value for this is straightforward: faster, more consistent responses for end users, better utilization of your AI resources, and fewer performance-related escalations. This allows organizations to deliver a reliable AI experience at scale without over-provisioning capacity or having to manually tune routing logic. And then for this final use case, we're going to focus on governance and security, which are especially critical as AI is becoming embedded in regulated or sensitive workflows, or even both. Now, NetScaler AI Gateway enables prompt templating, allowing organizations to control how AI is used by design. This ensures AI responses stay within approved boundaries. So, for example, keeping a healthcare-focused LLM strictly within clinical topics when a user sends a query. So you can't ask it about geopolitical stuff, for example. Or also preventing competitors from extracting proprietary or sensitive business information LLM, like the secret sauce of your company. It also helps reduce risk and unnecessary usage that can drive up costs. In addition, there's another really cool piece here NetScaler AI Gateway uses called LLM redaction. This ensures that sensitive data, such as PII, is never sent to or returned from the model. From a business perspective, this reduces compliance risk, protects brand trust, and enables organizations to deploy AI confidently in environments where data protection is non-negotiable. Now that we've covered a NetScaler AI Gateway, I want to move on to another very exciting topic, MCP and MCP servers. But before we talk about NetScaler's MCP server specifically, let's take a step back and talk about MCP at a high level for those who may be unfamiliar. So I've said it a few times, but the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, is a standardized way for AI agents to connect to enterprise applications and systems. MCP acts as a bridge between the AI agent and the application that holds the information, allowing the agent to request specific data and receive structured, trusted responses without direct access or custom integrations. Those who already know MCP know that its adoption is rapidly accelerating as organizations deploy AI agents across critical industries, where controlled access, audibility, and consistency is critical. As AI expands beyond simple chat interfaces, enterprises are converging on MCP because it provides a repeatable way for AI to interact with real systems. To make this concrete, let's consider a financial services example. We have a user who asks an AI assistant, "Do I have any accounts that exceed their risk threshold today?" The AI agent uses the Model Context Protocol language to talk to an MCP server that then connects to the risk management application that owns the data, retrieves the current information through a governed interface, and then returns a clear answer to the user that's using the LLM. The key point is that MCP relays information between the AI agent and the underlying system, rather than embedding the logic directly into the AI model. So that relay model is what makes MCP so important for an enterprise AI. Now, let's talk specifically about MCP server for NetScaler console. Today, the MCP server provides a governed MCP interface into NetScaler console. This allows AI agents to securely query operational information such as application inventory, ADC health, deployment details, and overall environment status. This means reducing the time and effort required to gather operational context, improving visibility across environments, and enabling your AI tools to quickly provide you with accurate real-time insights while maintaining strong controls and audibility. Importantly, this is just the starting point though. MCP server for NetScaler will continue to evolve with expanded coverage and additional capabilities planned over time. Looking ahead, this same MCP-based foundation opens the door for more advanced use cases, including an MCP server that supports directly on ADCs, where your AI can actually assist in configuration changes, policy updates, WAF enablement, and all the other NetScaler capabilities. Meanwhile, though, all under an enterprise-grade governance. So we want this to be driven by real customer needs. So all of you here today, as we continue to build this out, we'd really love to hear what MCP-based capabilities would be most valuable for your environment. So please let us know in chat, reach out to your representatives, or however you want to contact us. Now, as a final bonus topic, I want to touch briefly on security, and specifically how NetScaler is addressing emerging risks around self-hosted LLMs and MCP servers. At the end of the day, LLMs and MCP servers are exposed through HTTP APIs, just like any other modern application. That means they're subject to many of the same attack patterns we've seen for years, but with new twists introduced by AI-driven inputs. MCP servers in particular often run with elevated privileges and may trigger internal APIs or backend logic. At the same time, LLM requests are untrusted user input by design. So attackers can embed things like prompt injection patterns, malformed JSON, or oversized payloads that attempt to bypass application logic before traffic ever reaches the model or execution layer. So that's why having a first line of defense still matters for these new things. NetScaler's first wave of WAF protection for LLMs helps stop malicious requests early, before they lead to things like unauthorized data access, back-end exploitation, or downstream system impact. From a business perspective, this is going to reduce the risk of data exposure, service disruption, and costly incident response, while allowing teams to deploy self-hosted AI and MCP services with much greater confidence. These initial LLM focused protections are available today as part of the latest NetScaler WAF signatures update. And with that, I want to thank everyone who's joined us today, and I really hope you're as excited as I am about what's coming next with NetScaler. With all that said, I'll pass it back to you, Michael.
Great updates today, team. It's exciting to see how Citrix is innovating across our entire portfolio to help you secure the work and deliver seamless user experience no matter where or how your teams connect. This webinar will be available on demand so you can replay sections, share it with your team, or use it as a resource in your planning conversations. For even more details, check out the Citrix blog and be sure to visit the Tech Zone blog in the Citrix community for deeper technical dives. You can also ask questions and get help in the Citrix community forums, including on license activation services. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time.